Welcome to The Stories, Exploring the Creative Mind. This is the podcast where we invite conversations, share unique perspectives, and heartfelt stories about what it means to be creative. I'm your host, Chrissy, owner of Kite Jewels, a social and eco-conscious jewelry brand that aims to bring modern and versatile pieces to elevate your everyday style. Today I'm having a conversation with Lisa Friederike, a textile artist based in Calgary. Could you give our listeners a brief introduction into what it is you do and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an upcycling artist. I'll take thrifted denim jackets and shirts, and I create designs out of salvaged textiles, mostly for the back. Yeah, and I would just want to give them a new life.
Just to give everybody a little bit of background into how you and I got connected, I found you through mutual connections on Instagram. And as you know, I'm big into denim. And so when I saw your feed of embellished denim jackets and shirts, I was like, I gotta follow her, because not only were the designs like right up my alley, I love everything to do with nature, but like you say, everything is salvaged. So it's upcycled, all your pieces are thrifted. And so I love that. So everything about your work appeals to me, and that's why you're here. And I do think overall, many of us are becoming more cognizant about our fashion choices and the environment, the people who manufacture our clothes. And so a lot of us are inspired to look into our own closets and say, how can I reuse, rewear, repurpose some of my old pieces, but also how can I support businesses that are featuring sustainability as their core value? And so I'm hoping through our conversation, we're going to learn about your background, your work, also learn about how maybe some of us can get inspiration from our own closets and repurpose or maybe even create one of our own wearable pieces of art. So, could you tell us a bit about your background, what life experiences you had that led up to you creating these beautiful pieces of art?
So I have been creative and loving art all my life. It was actually the only time as a child that I would sit still, coloring or playing with Play-Doh. But the older I got, the more detached I got from it. The regular teacher stuff with, it's not worth pursuing a career in arts, or the starving artist image that always gets painted from society, family, etc. So I never really thought about pursuing a career in art. I always kind of saw it as a hobby. And I moved to Canada in 2017. I'm originally from Germany, and I moved to Canada to a very, very tiny island. Maybe some of you know it. It's called Haida
in British Columbia?
Yes, in British Columbia. Kind of 80 kilometers off the coast, roughly. A very remote place, but beautiful, right by the beach. And I definitely fell in love with the whole nature and scenery, even though it rains a lot over there. And in 2020, as probably many others, I lost my job due to COVID. And I had a lot of free time on my hand. So I had the urge suddenly to create something, to start something. And the only possible way of shopping on the island is actually 2 tiny thrift stores.
Okay.
And thrifting always was a huge passion of mine as well. I just love the treasure hunting, the digging through the stuff and finding the cool piece that nobody else has. Yeah. Also a way of myself, dressing myself. I was always interested in the unique, outstanding, one-of-a-kind pieces, not looking like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And so I went one day into the thrift store and I found this denim jacket, which the denim wasn't quite the color I wanted, but I still don't know up until today how it happened, but I just had this vision of, I'm going to put something on the back. And then they had a huge bin of just fabric scraps. And I thought, that's perfect. I don't have to cut anything else or buy new fabric. Again, there wouldn't have been a possibility to buy new anyways on the island. So I took it home, and my partner actually bought a sewing machine for me to sew curtains for his van. I have not sewed these curtains up until today, but I am still using the sewing machine.
Right.
And so I just started. I made this one piece. I had no idea how it will turn out. I kind of bleached the denim and just totally went into this creative journey without having any plan, any thought of how it would go on further. And then I created this first jacket, and my roommate was like, wow, this is so cool. I want one as well. And so I created another one. And then since I had so much time and so many like fabric scraps, and suddenly people like showed up at my doorstep and just gave me stuff. The community was really small. So the word was out there pretty quickly that I was doing this. And they were like, yeah, I don't use this anymore. Like I went through my closet, just take it and do something with it. And so I kept on creating. And so that's basically how it started. I don't have any like art school background. I learned how to sew when I was 9-ish, I think. My mom
that's
taught
early.
me. Yeah. Again, like I was always interested in it, and
Right.
I was always interested in keeping my hands busy with something that I can create and best from scratch.
Right.
So I think that's also where it comes from, like these designs and like unique designs for the jacket, because they're all one of a kind.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me.
Yeah, so I do think one of a kind pieces are just so special because not only are they all unique, there's almost like, I feel, an energy that the artist puts into it that gets transferred to the owner.
Yes.
And it's like good vibes, you know?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. It's definitely what I'm trying to do.
Right.
Like putting the love from the first second I find the piece into it until the new owner or the new person is wearing the piece. Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's say you found the perfect jacket and you want to work with it. What is like your process when you're about to create another piece?
It varies a lot. So sometimes I'm out in nature. Obviously, the mountains surrounding Calgary are never short of inspiration. Floral design, like any kind of nature moment that I have, I take in. And very often ideas evolve through that.
Do you take photos?
I do sometimes,
Yeah.
yes. But honestly, sometimes it just comes before like my inner eye. It's a little bit complicated to explain because it's just this idea, and I suddenly see like the lines and the colors, and I do think, so I'm doing this almost for 3 years now, a little bit over 3 years, and I think that kind of developed as well from the very first piece that I made. I can see like the fabric, the texture, patterns, like I kind of see it in front of my eye sometimes, and then I just have to get to it right away.
So you have this vision that you have to act on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like very randomly, it just pops to my mind, and then I have to get going with it. Other times, like I once went with my partner to a restaurant, and they had this like super interesting tile floor. And I was like looking the whole entire time on the floor, like while we were there. And suddenly I saw all of these abstract flower patterns. And so I actually drew it on a napkin that time because I was afraid I would forget. It was so mesmerizing.
Right.
And so I just drew it, and then I created a jacket out of that. Another time I went to the thrift store, I found a really cool spoon. It had like a floral design on it as well. So I bought the spoon, and then I took that design as well and kind of recreated it for a jacket. And then other times, like, of course, in platforms like Instagram, Pinterest, there is so much inspiration out there that you can use to get the ideas going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like once I have an idea, it's really like this feeling. My art is very much based on how I feel. So I have to be in the right mood. I have to be in the right like mindset to start. But if I have it, it has to happen right away. Like,
Yes.
I just have to get to it. And then the process in itself, like I normally sketch everything out first, and then most of the times with like paper cutouts to see how it would look on the jacket. Since every jacket is individual as well, I kind of have to see that the size and the dimensions of the design fits on the jacket I'm planning. And also I try to match the jacket to the design. So is the design more dainty, then the jacket might be like a little bit smaller, a little bit like fitted. Most of the jackets that I use or shirts are men's shirts, so normally very oversized, which I personally really like. But it just all has to fit together. So that's what I'm trying to do. And then once I chose the jacket, I chose the fabrics, I have the pattern, I cut it out, I arrange it on the jacket. And then that's the most tricky part to not get caught in, because I love to I want that it's perfect. And it's something I'm trying to get away from, actually, to just do the initial first thought that I had. But very often, I have to switch out colors or materials, because I don't like how they work together. So I have to go back quite often to rearrange things. Yeah, and then I put it on there. There is a lot of ironing and pressing involved, and then sewing.
Nice. Yeah, and I can relate to what you said about the vision and having to act on it immediately. Yes. It's almost like you can see it and you have to make it tangible immediately. Otherwise, it kind of evaporates and you're not in the mood anymore, and you no longer want to do it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel you when you say that. And also too, I think it's so interesting how you take that image in your mind and you're able to kind of puzzle it together with the pieces that you have in your stash.
Yes.
So I want to know, how do you do you have quite a large collection of fabrics? And
oh, yes. Yeah.
How do you organize it all? Do you have an organization system?
Yeah. I actually started one. When I first started off, I had one brown cardboard box and all the fabric in there. And every time I would create, I would dump the box, I would have it out on the floor and pick through it. But very quickly, that one cardboard box escalated into 9 see-through plastic boxes.
The big ones.
The big ones from Costco.
Yeah.
The really big ones.
Right.
So now I wanted see-through, so I sorted it by color. So I have all the yellows, reds, blues, greens all together. And then I have one box for more crazy patterns situation. Yeah, and then, I do kind of go with the colors that nature normally gives. So leaves green and water blue and stuff. So, and then I just take the box and I kind of go through. I do have fabrics that I tend to use often. Also ones that I just have more of. And I don't know how, but for some reason, I do remember in my mind a few of those fabrics and patterns. And even if this idea comes to mind, I sometimes see it already with the fabric.
Yeah.
So that's basically the organization that I have.
Right. I think a lot of us creative folk are the same way. We have this stash of whatever our materials are, and we try to organize a bit, in general. It's just kind of it's a struggle, right?
Yes. And I think but I think that's also a beautiful thing. The only person who will ever understand it is yourself. Exactly. Because you made it for yourself. And there is nobody else who has to understand it except yourself.
Yeah. Usually, when people come into my studio, I'm ignore the mess. Today I cleaned up for you, but it's usually way more messy, and I'm there was a product that's going to come at the end of this. Ignore the mess. Something I think beautiful is going to come out of this mess.
And I think I often say that too, oh yeah, excuse the mess, and I'm sorry all this stuff is laying around, but I love it. I love coming into your studio and seeing how you work, and my eyes are wandering towards your workbench, and just to see how your process is and your materials, and I think nobody has to judge that mess, because it is your creative process or my creative process. So
So I do want to go back to what you said about being spontaneous and trying not to control, the creativity or your initial thought, because, I love spontaneity, and I feel like that's where some of my best work comes from. And like you say, it's sometimes you second guess yourself. Do I need more of this, or do I need to take away that? So can you speak a little bit about that? Do you find that it is difficult for you to go with the flow?
It is very difficult for me to go with the flow. I think it's a personal trait of mine. And then again, I'm German. We never do something unplanned. Everything has to have a vision, has to have a plan, has to stick to that plan. And I have lived my life like that quite a bit. It was I have this idea, I have this vision, I'm gonna follow through with it till the end. And I discovered through my art that I don't have to do that. And my art is mine and mine alone. And it doesn't have to have any kind of outcome. If I enjoy it, if I enjoy the process, that's the most important part. Obviously, I appreciate that I got the chance to like sell my items and show it to the world. But in the first place, it's for me. And lately, I have also tried to go away from creating these paper patterns to trace onto the fabric and then cut the fabric out of that to have it more perfect. I have lately created a few pieces that are just, I take the scissors, I take the fabric, and I literally just start cutting. And I make like 2 or 3 adjustments. And other than that, I kind of force myself to like it without the perfectionism behind it. Mm-hmm. Because in the end, I do want that it looks good and I do want to like it. But again, like it is about the process and it is about going away from this perfectionism, this like, oh, this looks too handmade, people won't like it. Or in general, will people like what I'm doing? Like, I think that's a huge fear artists have very often. And I really, really want to go away from that and just do again what I love for myself. And then I think I actually create better work and better art if I have that mindset, because then I'm pouring all of myself into that art without thinking about anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I think then people will connect more and more with it.
Right. Yeah. And it's so freeing to be able to do that.
Yes.
And we had spoken about this earlier, but I think society judges artists' creativity by the value that society gives to it. So I think we're programmed to feel like unless we're making money from an activity that we're doing, that it's optional.
Yes.
You know, it's not necessary. It's not important. But I really do believe that it's important. Expressing your creativity is like a muscle.
Yes.
You know, being creative and tapping into that creative mindset, like the more you do it, the easier it is.
Yes.
You know, when we're younger, we had spoken about this too, is teachers, adults tell you like, oh, you know, a snowman is supposed to be white. Like you should color it different colors. Like sometimes I go into my kids' school and I look at the art that's on the wall and they almost look identical. Yeah. And sometimes I'll ask my kid, I'm like, did you not think to maybe make this bird this size or color it a different color? And they're like, well, you know, birds are supposed to be brown or black or whatever that color should be. And I'm like, that's really unfortunate. And not to say that it's the teachers or the school's fault, but creativity takes a lot of effort and it takes time. And sometimes we're not allowed that in these settings, in these school settings or at the workplace. And so I think we limit ourselves a lot of the times to have, it's almost like a luxury for us to be able to do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and like I feel very fortunate to have that luxury. And since I have been doing this, it also has given back to me so much. Like when I first started it, I was not, to be really honest, I was not in a really good mindset. I was not in a really good state of life. It was very chaotic. And I mean, again, with COVID, it didn't get easier. But for my mental health and for my own well-being, being creative and doing this is so important. And I will never, ever want to miss it again. And it is one thing, if I ever have family, I do want to encourage. And yes, how you said, it is not the school's fault. It is not the teacher's fault. But why does a snowman has to be white? So see, there you go. If the kid feels or thinks differently, I think that should be encouraged. And that's also something I experienced. Like I wanted to take art as like one of my major subjects in school. And I remember having this conversation with my mom, and my parents have always been very supportive of like my creative stuff. I had everything on this planet for creative materials to play with. But she was like, well, Lisa, just keep in mind, like art is taste, and somebody will put a grade on whatever you're creating, and it has to still be within standards. And I have always been very much against like society standards and against this, like it has to fit into a box. I kind of rebelled against that, even like during my school time and like now later in life and everything. I'm very much for do whatever you feel like doing. And if your snowman wants to be blue, then your snowman is blue. Like it's your own choice.
I think we all know that snow is white, but like let's say in your mind you want it to be blue, like why not creatively, express that?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. It's your free choice.
Yeah.
And to me, that's also something very beautiful about art, and everybody can do whatever they think is right. And there are no rules. I guess now some art professors will be like, what? But to me, there are no rules. You do what you feel like and what you see and what you experience.
Right.
And then the right people will connect with it.
Right.
So
yeah, we all find our own tribe of people.
Yes.
So let's say somebody wants to make their own piece of wearable art. Mm-hmm. Are there any tips you have for them, like in terms of materials, in terms of equipment, the space that you need?
Mm-hmm. Yes and no. You can start from as little as a kitchen towel with a design that you like. Sew it with your hand on a jacket that is in your closet, to go find fabrics, old, how I said, kitchen towels, tablecloths, old t-shirts, whatever it is that you feel connected with. You can have an industrial sewing machine. I, for example, have a very simple Singer heavy-duty sewing machine. It can't even sew a buttonhole, to be honest. So very simple. It works for me. I love it. And other than that, just get started. Mm-hmm. If you have old fabrics, if you have a denim jacket, or even like a shirt, or your partner has a shirt, and you see something, again, like it can be a flower, it can be a mountain, it can be a bird, like whatever comes to mind, and just play around with it. My first jacket is just sewn on fabric straps, like stripes kind of, that I just cut out. Same shape and straight lines, no curvy designs, nothing. And then I just put it on a jacket, and that was it.
You make it sound so easy.
Well, to me it is quite easy.
So you mentioned you learned to sew when you were younger?
Yes.
And so that kind of stuck with you, or did you have to do like a little refresher, like look up YouTube videos, that sort of thing? No,
it definitely stuck with me. I am not a YouTube video watching person. Okay. If I can't figure it out by myself, I most likely won't do it. That's, I think, one of my biggest weaknesses. If I don't know, if I cannot figure out how to do something within 15 minutes, I most likely won't do it.
Right. Okay. So for the rest of us, though,
yes.
Let's say I want to make one of these things. I probably should look up a YouTube video or ask my mom.
Yes.
Somebody who knows how to sew.
Yes. And again, like sewing is actually not magic. You take, like, if you have a sewing machine at hand, even if it's just with a straight stitch. So there is a straight stitch, there is a zigzag stitch.
Right.
I mostly use the zigzag stitch. So the fabric won't fray out. You kind of seal the fabric. On that note, I do not have a serger, which would do that more professionally. I still acquire one. I would love to have one someday. But I do it with that simple sewing machine, and even with a straight.
Could somebody hand sew? Hand sew?
You could do that as well.
Yeah.
I would just recommend folding in the hem a little bit, just so that if you wear it, and I mean, washing is a little bit delicate with these pieces anyways, but that you won't lose the fabric, because the edges will like kind of fray out. Like if you cut your jeans, you get those little frays down there. Yeah. And jeans is a very forgiving, or denim is a very forgiving material. Other fabrics, not so much. Mm-hmm. And then what I also try to like focus on is natural fabrics. So I really try not to use polyester fabrics or like synthetic fabrics, mostly because you can't iron them. And I have learned the hard way. I've ruined an iron, and I ruined the fabric by pressing a hole into it because the fabric just melts.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, like the natural fabrics, like thicker woven fabrics work the best.
Okay, so like cotton, obviously that'd be denim.
Linen.
Silk.
Hemp, silk.
Yeah, hemp.
Anything like that. Even like a blend, like with a little bit of cotton. Cotton is also very forgiving. They are normally very sturdy fabrics, like the canvas fabrics, for example.
But stay away from polyester, nylon.
Yes.
The synthetic stuff.
Yes.
So look at the tags when you're buying these things.
Yes.
And look for natural
fabrics
because it's easier to work with and also the longevity, right?
Yes.
Is what you're saying.
Yeah. And then if you wash it, for example, there are no microplastics coming into the water.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, like the more experience you get, like I do have some polyester fabrics just to also give them another purpose, so they're not landing in the landfill, because they will be around forever. They do not compost at all. But they are also like slippery. So like for someone who's not as experienced with like the pinning and the like sewing, like it moves a lot under the sewing machine on the design. It's just a very almost like flimsy fabric to work with. So yeah, I just enjoy the natural fibers better.
Right. And like you say, denim is just so versatile.
Yeah, and so forgiving. With denim, you can do so much.
But also too, like if you're going out, like people wear, like I wear denim all the time. Like I would totally wear, a denim shirt.
Today.
I am wearing, if you guys can't see us, but I am wearing head to toe denim, double denim. I mean, I just love it because you can wear it to a nice restaurant, like unless it's like super fancy. Obviously, you're not going to be wearing like jeans, but most places you can actually get away with wearing denim.
Yes.
And I just love it. Yeah.
And again, like it is such a good sturdy fabric. It will last you forever.
Yeah.
Like if we think about like vintage Levi's, vintage Wrangler, why are we so happy if we find a piece? Because they have a quality that you can't deny, right? Like it's the fiber is good, the fit is good, it is made to last longer.
Right. So within your work, what are some of the obstacles or challenges that you face?
I think as every other artist, a huge obstacle is space and time, always. If you're not lucky and you do it full time and you're able to sustain yourself being an artist full time, you always have to manage the day-to-day life with your artist life. And then the space, I kind of said that or mentioned that earlier. I think I went from many different kitchen floors, living room carpets, living room tables to actually a full equipped studio space, which I very, very much loved for a year, back to now a kitchen table in a very tiny apartment downtown Calgary. So space and time are definitely the biggest factors, which I don't mind. I think I'm a person who can adjust very well. And I also think that shouldn't be a limitation for you to start something, because it is possible anywhere and anytime if you want to. But for me, often a big obstacle is having the inspiration, feeling the feelings of being inspired and starting a piece, and not being stuck so much in this mindset of it has to be perfect. So I don't even want to start it if I don't have the perfect idea. And I think, unfortunately, often if you look at Instagram pages or like the whole social media way of presenting your art, as much as it is an advantage for artists, it's also our very own demon, because we can, you compare yourself so quickly to others. And I think every artist goes through those phases of, I don't have an inspiration, I just don't feel it, I want to do something completely different. But to allow yourself that space, to give yourself that time, nobody actually really tells you that. And I am in school as well. I'm taking a continuing education class or course for visual design. And I had one teacher so far who did an introduction, and she was like, as an artist, you need downtime. And it is the biggest thing you will not get taught in art school. But take your time, take your space. Good art and the inspiration will come to you. But yeah, it comes and goes. It is an ebb and flow. Is that what you say?
Ebb and flow. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm currently experiencing what you would call an ebb. I mean, I think I've just been stuck in this production mode for so long. I'm like, I just need to get back to that creative space.
Yes.
And like you say, Instagram is great because that's how we connected.
Yes.
Social media is great because you get to see everybody's work, but you know, it is limiting in the way that it can hamper the way you feel about your own work.
Yes.
And also too, not just how you feel about your own work, but it almost sets limitations to creativity.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to make this design because I feel like this other person's design is way better.
Yes.
You know, so even for me, when I'm trying to think of a new design or I'm in that creative space, I'll ignore social media.
Yes.
I don't go on social media, or I tend not to like follow people within. I know this sounds kind of like I'm not for the community of jewelers. I totally am. It's just that I don't want to be in the space of like almost infiltrating my mind with other people's ideas, because that sort of taints your own vision and your own growth as a creator. Yeah. Do you feel that?
I totally agree. And I have that very often, that I stumble up on other fiber artists in my case. And I have thoughts exactly like you, like, oh, should I even start this? Like, wow, they're so much better, or like they do it so much different. And then like in my head, I go through these stages of like, yeah, but they have the right setup and they have the right studio and they have, you know, and in the end, it all doesn't matter. It is whatever you make is what you are and who you are. And what they make is who they are. But yeah, Instagram and social media can be definitely a little bit haunting with that.
Yeah, for sure. So now I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you ready, Lisa?
Yes.
These are all a surprise. Here we go. So the first one is, if there was one piece of clothing you had to wear for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Okay. Honestly, this is so cliche, but I'm going to say a denim jacket.
Okay.
It is so cliche, right? But it's the first thing that comes to my mind. And I'm always cold, so I always need a jacket. And how you said earlier, denim goes for any occasion.
Right.
So,
and if we think back to it, when has a denim jacket not been in style?
Yes. And when, like, who is not owning a denim jacket
right. Everybody
already?
has one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
I like that.
I think that's what I go with.
All right. Next question. What's one fashion trend that's current or in the past that you love? I know you said you're not really into trends and stuff like this.
Yes. Yeah.
But what's one that you love that you wouldn't mind, like,
the boyfriend look.
The boyfriend look, yeah.
Anybody who knows me knows I love everything that's oversized.
Yeah.
I just went shopping yesterday, like thrifting with a friend, and I, like, over half of my closet is from the men's section. So yeah, boyfriend trend, anything that's oversized will always be in style for me.
Yeah.
But yes, other than that, I do have trends where I'm like, oh, this is so cool, and like I might gonna do it for a little bit, or like if I find something that I can thrift. But even as a teenager, I have never followed trends. I had always a very, maybe if somebody from my high school time is listening to this, I always had a very special way of dressing myself. Very like loud colors, lots of pattern, very different.
We're gonna need
everybody
pictures.
else.
We're gonna need pictures.
I will see if I can find some.
Yeah, take one up.
Yes.
All right, next question. What's one fashion trend that you dislike? Like, you see it and you hate it. I know hate is a strong word.
Yeah. The very, very like crop top.
Very crop top.
tops.
Okay.
I do like the shorter style as well, and like hip length. But sometimes now I look at stuff in stores and I'm like, where's the rest of the shirt, or where's the rest of the sweater? And this mostly, again, comes from me always being cold. I need something to feel cozy and warm in, and not like super crazy short.
Yes.
And I'm not necessarily the huge fan of the low rise trend of jeans coming back.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just me personally, and who knows, maybe we will see each other in 4 months and I'm gonna wear a low rise. I don't know.
And a crop top.
Yes. Again, it's very much how I feel and how I feel comfortable, and that also changes from time to time. So
right. Okay. Next question. Which celebrity or famous person would you want to dress or see wearing one of your creations?
Ooh, wow. Okay. Never had that question before. Do
you need time to think about it?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
This one's always the hard one. The
Yes.
celebrity / famous person. Okay. Next one. What's your favorite piece that you've created to date?
it is one of the very first pieces I created. It is also a piece that I kept for myself and that I will most likely never sell. Sorry. It is a woman's face. I created a woman's face, and originally I called it Child of the Sun. Again, it was during the time I was living on Haida Gwaii. We had 5 days of sunshine in 7 months. And I'm very much a sunshine person. I need sunshine and warmth.
Me too.
I can't live without it. But also, how I said I wasn't in the best mindset. And through creating this piece, and especially creating this woman's face, in my opinion, with a lot of like international factors. So it is not supposed to be me. It is not supposed to be anybody. It's supposed to be a symbol for women all over the world. I come from a very large family, and I would say from a family with very strong women. So that also kind of gave me back a little bit of the connection that I needed, being far away from home. And looking back, I think I worked through a lot of emotions during, it almost took me 3 weeks to create that jacket.
So it's like therapy.
Yes. Which is actually very often with my pieces.
Well, it's beautiful. So what's your favorite thing about living in Canada so far?
Everything. I love Canada. I honestly, again, I hope nobody back home will judge me now, but I love the space. I love the nature. I love the friendly people, the way of living, the more peaceful way of just letting be. I come from a very dense area in Germany, so lots of people in the same place, apartment buildings, etc. And it's very like often very judgmental, and then like
everybody knows each other.
Yes, and wants to be in their business, and like has a comment on everything, has a comment on what your children are doing and if they're home or not home, and over here I have experienced that people are generally more happy because they just live the way they want to live.
They're minding their own business.
Yes. If you want to live out on a farm, like obviously here in Alberta, you go and do that. You have the possibility to do that. You can have your horses, you can have your cattle. Nobody cares. You don't have to have a neighbor like in some parts for, 50 kilometers. If you're more a city person, you enjoy like going out and stuff, you do that. Like you move to a city. And
so you feel more free.
Yes. Yeah, I really do. Yeah. I know it's not perfect, but I enjoy speaking a language that is not my mother language. And like I joke with my family all the time, like Canadian time. And it was actually funny when you came to pick me up, you were 10 minutes early. I actually kind of gambled that you would be 10 minutes late because
I didn't want to be stuck in traffic. And then like you showing up and waiting in the cold. So.
Well, here's the thing. I'm the most unpunctual German, as you experienced this morning. I really adjusted to this way of
Canadian time.
Yeah, like 5 minutes don't really matter. Like in my apprenticeship,
it doesn't.
Back home, like if I was not 10 minutes early dressed on the floor, I was in trouble. And all this like pressure, I just don't feel it over here that much.
Oh, okay. That's so interesting.
Also, honestly, with like my creative journey, I mostly sell in Canada and in the US, I guess, like with shipping and everything. But I think also the mindset is different than in Germany. And
would you say Europe in general or Germany specifically?
I think Europe in general, we are, and we kind of talked a little bit about that as well already, like these societal standards and measurements, and everything has to have a value and has to have a growth, and like how much money do you make with it, or how many pieces can you create, like this manufacturing factor. And I have experienced over here that people, they ask those questions, but not always. When I'm back home, that's the first thing I get asked, like, okay, how much money do you make? Like, how's your business going? Like, can you even call it a business? Did you register? Blah, 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 blah. And it's all of this like practical stuff that has nothing to do with my art. Yeah. So, I mean, the question was a little bit different, but I just love living in Canada. all in all.
In summary, you love Canada.
Yes. Yeah, that's the only thing, maybe not for those very long winters.
Right. No, I would agree. Yeah. Okay, so going back to the celebrity or famous person, is there somebody that kind of pops in your head where you're like, okay, I would love if this person wore one of my jackets?
Oh, it's so tricky.
Or is there somebody you admire, like in the fashion space, or, you know, just as like maybe a singer or an actor, or you love their style?
Honestly, I don't have TV, like public TV, so I don't see a lot of celebrities, and I've never been really interested in that. Even like as a teenager, I never had like a famous
a friend, somebody you would admire.
I do have someone who popped like to my mind. He's a photographer and a filmmaker, Wim Wenders. He's one of my favorite photographers and artists. I don't know if he would ever consider wearing something that I made, but if that would be to happen, that would also be one person I would love to have lunch with.
Okay.
Just to get to know him. I really admire his photography. Yeah, but other than that, I have a lot of friends who purchase jackets already from me, and where I'm super thankful that they do, where I have never would have expected it. But yeah, with a famous person, I really don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll have to, or let's just tag this person, this photographer that you mentioned.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll look into him. Sounds
okay.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. So where can people connect with you? So obviously there's the Instagram.
Yes, I have a website with a web shop. Then the Instagram.
What's your handle on Instagram?
Friederike Art. Just as a side note as well, the Friederike is a mix out of my first name and my middle name.
Right.
So Lisa Friederike. And when I started all of this, again, like I never sat down and was like, oh, what am I going to call my business? It was like, I don't know, I think I woke up one day and I was like, oh, this sounds fun.
It is fun.
and then I just went with it. And often people have told me like, yeah, like with business, you don't want to have it too personal. Like business is like about making money, and you don't attach yourself to anything. And like, for me, I always disagreed with that. And I always said, if I ever have a business, if I ever run a shop, or like as a little girl, I dreamed of a coffee shop. I always said, I want to make it the most personal experience there is, because it is coming from me. It is me. And I want that people experience that and feel at home, feel loved, all of that. And so, yeah, the idea with the business name, choosing my name basically.
Yeah, so I think it's perfect. It's a perfect mix of like, it's also very catchy, it's fun, and it's your name. I couldn't think of a better handle name for your business. Thanks. Yeah, could you spell out your Instagram handle? It's at
LIFRIKEART.
Okay.
So Friederike Art.
Right. And then your website?
www.liefrieke.com. So again, LIFRIKE.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Or you might gonna see me in the next thrift store hunting down those treasures.
There you go. Thank you so much, Lisa, for this conversation.
Thanks
it's very
for having
inspiring
me.
Talking to you. And I am inspired to actually dust off my old sewing machine now and see if I can work it. I think I'll have to look at some YouTube videos first, though.
Well, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to help.
Sounds good.
And thanks again for having me.
Thank you. So my conversation with Lisa has inspired me on so many levels, but the biggest thing I took away from our conversation is that we should stay true to our own individual creative journeys, our own growth, and not to let other people, society, either directly or indirectly tell you what you can or cannot do. And also to just give ourselves those downtimes to get re-inspired and to just go with the flow. And as Lisa says, your art is yours and yours alone, and the right people will connect with it. If you missed anything, check out the blog post on kitejewels.com/blogs/the-stories. And if you enjoyed listening, please consider following this podcast and sharing it with a friend. My name is Chrissy, and you can find me at Kite Jewels on Instagram and my jewelry on kitejewels.com, where you can find all the jewels you need to elevate your everyday. Thank you for listening.